and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at.
There has to be a reckoning.
Leaders of the state's Accountability Commission on federal immigration agents' conduct during Operation Midway Blitz.
His was the voice that was calling to you to gather here today.
And a new documentary offers a fresh look at the legacy of civil rights pioneer W.E.B. Du Bois. First off tonight, a record partial government shutdown has come to an end after more than 2 months. U.S. House lawmakers voted today to restore federal dollars to fully fund TSA, the Coast Guard, Secret Service, FEMA, and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. The bill also funds a portion of the Department of Homeland Security that does not deal with immigration enforcement. President Trump signed the bill this afternoon. What's not included in the deal is funding for Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Republicans are looking to fund those agencies in a separate measure, with voting expected on that in May. The man accused of killing a Chicago police officer at a hospital last weekend was back in court today as prosecutors share details about what led to the fatal shooting. A Cook County judge ordered 26-year-old Alfonso Talley to remain in jail as he awaits trial on a litany of charges related to the death of Officer John Bartholomew. In court today, prosecutors say officers had arrested Talley on suspicion of armed robbery at a nearby store Saturday morning, then escorted him to Endeavor Swedish Hospital. Once at the hospital, Officer Bartholomew uncuffed Talley from a bed, and that is when he allegedly pulled a handgun from under a blanket and opened fire. Bartholomew was struck in the head and killed, his partner in the chin. He remains in critical condition. Additionally, late this afternoon, CPD announced memorial services have been set for Officer Bartholomew. Visitation will be Thursday, May 7th at St. Andrew's Greek Orthodox Church in Edgewater. The funeral will be held the next day, Friday, May 8th, at the same location. For more on services, you can visit our website. Thousands of labor organizers, students, and other advocates are preparing to participate in May Day events around the city tomorrow. It's part of demonstrations in recognition of May Day, also known as International Workers' Day. The main rally is expected to begin at 1 p.m. in Union Park, and the march is set to step off at 2 and end at Daley Plaza. Organizers are calling for workers to be prioritized over billionaires, for ICE to be abolished, and more. They're also pushing for an economic blackout on Friday. For more on the events happening, please check out our website. Bally's Chicago Casino held their topping off ceremony today, where they raised a red metal beam signed by stakeholders, politicians, and construction workers before placing it atop the expansive building. More than 1,000 people have worked on the project, and officials say hundreds more permanent jobs are expected to be added once it's completed early next year.
This casino will generate millions of dollars every single year. Its much needed revenue will help safeguard the pensions of first responders and fund capital projects desperately needed across the state. When it's complete, it will support long-term union careers across hospitality, entertainment, and operations.
The finished project will feature a 500-room hotel, a 500-seat theater, 6 restaurants, and a public park. Mayor Brandon Johnson says revenue from the complex will shore up the city's budget by $100 million. Up next, calls to discipline some ICE and Border Patrol agents for their actions during Operation Midway Blitz. That's right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
Last October, Chicagoans were living through the height of Operation Midway Blitz. In reaction to the aggressive immigration raids in the Chicago area, Governor J.B. Pritzker created the Illinois Accountability Commission to document alleged abuses by federal agents. By then, agents had already shot 2 residents, killing 1. They had raided a South Shore apartment complex, and according to the commission's final report released today, they were in the middle of a military-style occupation of Chicago's Little Village neighborhood. And those are just a few of the events investigated. Now the commission is referring its findings to local prosecutors. Joining us now to discuss the report is Ruben Castillo, the former chief judge for the Northern District of Illinois and the chair of the Accountability Commission. Judge, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So on September 6th of last year, Donald Trump posted on social media an image of himself with the caption, "Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War." You can see that there on the screen. 6 days later, federal agents shot and killed Silverio Villegas Gonzalez in the suburb of Franklin Park. You draw a distinct connection between these two events. Tell us what that is.
We do. It's cause and effect. That chronology and the chronology that's outlined in our report shows how this was motivated by officials in Washington, D.C., the president, Mr. Miller, and agents were sent to Chicago with the idea of being warlike, brutal, militaristic, use of weapons, tear gas, which we have an expert who testified that tear gas is outlawed in war, but it was used extensively by ICE and Customs Border Patrol agents. All of that is detailed in our report.
Okay. I also want to mention that we're also joined now by sort of your partner in all of this,
Exactly.
Patricia Brown Holmes, an attorney and vice chair of the Accountability Commission. You were also a Cook County judge and an assistant U.S. attorney and assistant state's attorney. So, of course, lots of experience for you in this field. Judge, the commission's report described Operation Midway Blitz, quote, as a whole-of-government approach to suppress opposition. Judge Holmes, who did you find was involved in all of this?
So the evidence led straight up to the White House. You know, it started from the top with executive orders and went straight through federal agencies and came all the way down to the streets of the city of Chicago. So,
and of course, I think we heard over the course of your work naming and hopefully hoping to hear from a few of those senior officials in the Trump administration, Department of Homeland Security, former Secretary Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, those folks, you're saying that those are the ones who were involved in all of this and calling the shots.
Correct, and we asked them to come and speak with us, and every one of them declined.
Judge Castillo, why aren't federal agencies holding agents accountable for misconduct or alleged misconduct?
Well, that's a good question. That has to go with the leadership of the Department of Justice. They, instead of doing that, have prosecuted different protesters. We saw Miss Martinez shot 5 times.
Marimar Martinez, of course.
She was prosecuted. Instead of, you know, an apology being offered for being shot, she was taken into custody the very day she was shot. So, to the contrary, instead of any agents being disciplined, investigated, or prosecuted, they have absolutely declined to do so, and that is why we need local officials to investigate and potentially prosecute these cases.
Judge Holmes, what is your commission doing with the evidence that you all collected?
So we are sending that evidence to various state's attorneys' offices across the state and asking them to take a look at the information that we've provided. And we want to note that this is only the evidence that we were able to provide without subpoena. So we had to rely on volunteers. We had to rely on just asking people to come and talk to us, neighborhoods, communities, people telling us their stories, folks with cell phones. And so we're giving this information. It's the beginning, it's not the end. It's just a start for them to look into and actually do full investigations of this information.
Because you acknowledge, you know, the commission faced some limitations in collecting evidence.
Yes.
What were some of those?
Well, we don't have subpoena power, so we can only ask you. If you say no, we can't do anything about it. You said no, that's it. So we went into communities. We actually went over several communities over the city and various communities to sit down and say, look, we're not scary. We just really want to record the information that you've given us or information that you have so that we can then preserve it and give it to authorities who might be able to hold folks accountable for the activity that has taken place.
Another big limitation was the immigration status of our witnesses because they feared retaliation. I mean, they could be immediately taken into custody and deported if they came forward in a very public way. So we had to talk to a lot of individuals privately.
Right.
Of course. Okay. So not on the record. I think during Martimar Martinez's testimony a couple of days ago, you shared anonymous testimony from a woman who did not want to be identified.
She was on the screen talking, but not identified in any way. There are many other people that we had listening sessions with where we would sit around a table like this and just talk as to what happened. And they were comfortable in that setting. But even with that setting, there were people that said, I want to talk to you privately, Judge. And our commissioners went and spoke to people privately.
So Cook County State's Attorney Eileen O'Neill Burke, she has so far resisted calls to appoint a special prosecutor. In response to your report today, she released a statement saying, quote, "We commend the bravery of every witness who testified about their harrowing experiences before the Illinois Accountability Commission. Under Illinois statute, our office can bring charges only after receiving a completed investigation from a law enforcement agency." Judge Castillo, what's your response to her statement?
Well, I really don't understand her response. That's what I would say. It's a little frustrating. I've never met her. I have no personal animosity toward her, but I don't understand all these technicalities. We are an official state commission, and we've presented her with information. We also have sent this to police departments, so I expect that they will investigate, and she will get an investigative report. And yet, I've also heard that she said, under no circumstances can a state official prosecute federal agents. And I don't understand that because you will see that that's going to occur in other states.
Tell me more about that. How do we know that that's going to occur in other states? What do we know about
I think
what's
it's already
there?
occurred in Colorado, and I know Minnesota is gearing up to do that with respect to the two individuals, Ms. Good and Mr. Pruddy, who were killed in other incidents of needless brutality. And so I really don't understand the ultimate resistance that the state's attorney's office has shown, both to the mayor when he tried to set up a protocol with the Chicago Police Department, which is an investigative agency, and now the resistance that she's showing to our commission. It just doesn't make sense. Now, I will tell you personally, I'm one of the petitioners that has requested a special prosecutor be appointed. If she believes she cannot do this, I said this today publicly, I have no hesitation saying this, she should step aside like State's Attorney Alvarez did and let a special prosecutor be appointed to investigate and potentially prosecute this. But to say that these agents could come and create the misconduct that they created and actually kill somebody, shoot somebody, and just walk away with impunity, turns the law upside down.
So your commission, you relied heavily on citizens who documented the actions of federal agents. Here's Governor Pritzker back in September.
People of Illinois, we need your help. Get out your cell phones, record and narrate what you see. So keep documenting. It could make a world of difference for someone, perhaps for all of us.
I think we know over the course of Midway Blitz, lots of us were seeing lots of videos coming from so many different sources. Judge Holmes, how do you verify the videos that you received?
Well, we can't do any, forensic verifications. That's one of our limitations. However, somebody shows up with their cell phone and they're in the video or they've taken that video footage. That's verification enough right there for someone to take the time to investigate the activity that they are taking pictures of. They aren't creating it. It's not staged. It's actually happening. It's real, and someone needs to look into it.
We heard the governor say that, the documentation could make a world of difference. Did it make that world of difference?
I believe so. I mean, it's the documentation that's more than he said, she said, right? You say, I got shot, and we've got video footage of you getting shot. you know, there you go. You
That
don't.
matters.
It's not your word against someone else's. It's actually the footage, the video. It's street cameras. It's individuals walking past. It's eyewitnesses. I mean, it's all of that goes into it.
What are the lasting impacts of Midway Blitz that your commission found?
You know what? It's community impact. It's individual. It's the little girl who can't go to her 15-year-old quinceañera and celebrate a rite of passage. It's the store owner who loses his business and therefore can't feed his family. It's the little girl who is afraid to be out in public when she hears a whistle because, you know, what's about to happen. It's people who have been tear gassed and are suffering the physical and mental strain of that sort of thing. It's the individual citizens of this state who are afraid to be out in public.
So a long-term traumatic impact, of course, it has legs. It sticks around.
It has legs.
Judge Ruben Castillo, Patricia Brown Holmes, thanks to you both for joining us. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Up next, a new look at a civil rights icon. We have reduced in our culture W.E.B. Du Bois to some sound bites. That's Peabody and Emmy Award-winning director, writer, and producer Rita Coburn on the legacy of pioneering civil rights activist and sociologist W.E.B. Du Bois. In her new documentary, Coburn tells the story of how trips to Europe, the lynching of a young black man in Georgia, and another civil rights icon all played a role in shaping W.E.B. Du Bois into a giant of American history. Here's a peek.
I very early got the idea
that I was going to prove to the world that Negroes
were just like other people.
W.E.B. Du Bois is arguably the greatest black intellectual scholar activist in American history.
The first African American to receive a PhD from Harvard.
He's one of the most educated men in the country, not black men.
Joining us to discuss her documentary is filmmaker Rita Coburn. She's a Harvey native, a Northwestern grad, and producer of TV content right here in Chicago for Oprah and our own WTTW, among others. Welcome back, Rita. Good to see you. Congrats on the film.
Thank you.
So this is an expansive 2-hour documentary about Du Bois, and you have said that his life has often been, quote, reduced to sound bites. Remind us of W.E.B. Du Bois's role in history and the parts of the story that you really wanted to bring to light in this film.
I thought it was important to be expansive about this man who helped start the Niagara movement, co-founded the NAACP, but really grew up in Great Barrington, born in 1868, 3 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, but not hampered by the rest of the blacks, for the most part, in the South, who were digging their way out of enslavement. He had had generations of being free. As that was in his family and in his DNA, he took this massive intellect that he had and used it to go for civil rights for blacks and for other people as well who were marginalized.
So he was the first black person to earn a PhD from Harvard University, considered a pioneer of American, scientific sociology. Tell us how he leveraged research and academics to highlight racial injustice, something that nobody else was doing at the time.
Well, he studied sociology in Berlin at a time when it was not known that that was going to be a academic study in the United States. And he began to put empirical data together. And of course, because we're in Chicago, a lot of us know about Chicago, the great metropolis, which was done by Horace Cayton. But prior to that, the very first time that people went door to door and gathered data and research about Black people was with W.E.B. Du Bois when he did that for Philadelphia. But he also, that was a through line through all his work, was the systematic gathering of data to prove his points about Black people in society.
One event that particularly impacted him was the lynching of Sam Hose in Georgia. After that incident, Du Bois wrote, quote, "One could not be calm, cool, and detached scientist while Negroes were lynched, murdered, and starved." Tell us about that incident and how it impacted him.
You are so exactly right. I think here's where W.E.B. Du Bois is a scientist. He's been to Berlin. He's been to Harvard. He's been to Fisk. But now what he has to do is realize that he is now a Black man in the South, and that Black men in the South are lynched, dismembered, burned. And that stuck with him in a way that it wouldn't for people who were there, who knew that this was happening on a regular basis. And that changed him from saying, I can't think of this as a study. I now have to become a journalist. I have to become an activist. And it changed his life.
Analyzing Du Bois's psyche and thought processes, that's, sort of a through line for you in the documentary. There is a clip here explaining a concept from his book, The Souls of Black Folk, about how Black people grapple with a split identity. Here it is.
It's a peculiar sensation, this double consciousness, this sense of always looking at oneself through the eyes of others, of measuring one's soul by the tape of a world that looks on in amused contempt and pity.
Two-ness.
One ever feels his two-ness. An American, a Negro. Two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings.
Why was it important for you to explore him as a person, but also his mind? Was that a goal for you in this film?
Thank you for that. It absolutely was. And the way that I was able to do that, we call that breaking the story. At what point do I reach a breaking point that the common person who hadn't studied him would understand him, that people who knew him would find out that they knew something different? And he's deceased. And we could tell who he was through his writings. So we were able to take quotes from that and allow readers like Jeffrey Wright and Common and Courtney Vance to read his words, and that's how we get an idea of his inner thoughts.
And you call it breaking the story in filmmaking, very different from what we call it in daily news, which is also
right.
we're breaking the story.
I guess that's true.
There's two uses for that. Before we run out of time, I want, because this is a very interesting part of Black history and American history, the documentary also details his relationship with Booker T. Washington, another civil rights icon and prominent leader in the African American community in the late 1890s, early 20th century. Du Bois disagreed with Washington's support for, for a strategy of accommodationism, right?
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about that.
I think that what you have is a changing of the guard. You have people growing up. You have people having more freedoms. And you have a man, Booker T. Washington, who was enslaved until he was 6 years old. And then you have a man who is free and younger and who has been around the world. And he's reading and studying the Constitution. And at a point he says, it's time to move on. I initially agreed with you, but I don't think we have to do that. And I think that Du Bois's ability to redefine himself, to disagree with presidents as well as Black leaders taking no prisoners, is one of the things that makes him a rebel.
20 seconds left. What do you want people to take away from this film?
That this was a person who was just a human being. He's going to bring all his good and all his bad out in this documentary, but his bottom line was to help Black people in particular and all marginalized people understand their worth.
Okay. Rita Coburn, thank you so much for joining us. Congrats.
Thank you.
Of course. And you can watch W.E.B. Du Bois Rebel with a Cause right here on WTTW. It premieres at 8 p.m. on Tuesday, May 19th, so mark your calendar. We're back right after this.
Reflecting the people and perspectives that make up our communities, this story is part of Chicago Tonight, Black Voices.
And that's our show for this Thursday night. Explore the natural world around you by signing up for our free email newsletter, Urban Nature. That's at WTTW.com/newsletter. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 7 for the Week in Review. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that is a multilingual law firm, providing translators for a variety of languages.